Mike Alford made the statement here, and it's the typical type of speak that you uh, typically get. But I think he said a lot here in the first statement, and Logan alluded to it because this was a talking point here and on any Florida State platform that knows what it's talking about concerning culture. And that's kind of a buzzword, a catchword, but it was a real thing at Florida State. So the 10-3, obviously, that's the bottom line: wins and losses. That's what you have to see, the results. But what all the blood, sweat, and tears that poured into the result of 10-3, because all sorts of programs and coaches go through situations where they've got a fairly marginal team, but they catch a couple lucky breaks and they pull out a 9-3 season, and that's all it is. But I think that this athletic department and administration sees a guy that took on a lot of dysfunction, a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of bad vibes, a lot of bad morale. And he was able to distinguish, who is truly in it here that we can keep around, who needs to be shown the door, how can I energize and uplift this program and these athletes. And basically anybody that had any connection to winning big football games is gone. And I've got to take a lot of players that are used to losing, and maybe some of them are satisfied with that, and others hate losing, but they don't know how to win. And I got to completely revamp this whole thing. So it's more than just going from winning 5 and 6 games for a 4 or 5 year stretch to winning 10 one year. It's, as you guys know better than me, it's what he's done to that locker room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot that he's had to endure at once. I mean, first week arrival almost, it felt like. And there was a few players that were already on the team that weren't really with the vision that Mike Norvell had right away. And it's really fun to watch, at least being there at practices and see the year-to-year change of some of the guys, the veterans like an Akeem Dent, of course, Jordan Travis, but multiple other players like a Fabian Lovett, guys that continued to believe in that process and to where they think they can get. And now it seems like a mentality has changed, and that's something that Florida State has needed for a very long time. And I bring it up all the time, accountability. Florida State really needed that, that last year, Jimbo Fisher, maybe even before that, you started losing accountability after that 2014 season a little bit. Guys getting a little more selfish, looking ahead at the league and not thinking about themselves and week by week of the opponents that they're taking on. And, this team is, playing for one another. And that takes a lot from a head coach to be able to build that in a short period of time with the stuff like you were just talking about, Mark, coming into what, Willie Taggart had left for him. That was a mess all around. There's some things that we can't even talk about on here that a lot of people know what happened. And, just to think what Mike Norvell had to go through to, fix things in Tallahassee wasn't the easiest, but that was just one step. You got to go over and you got to fix on the recruiting trail too. Make these recruits not forget who Florida State is. Yeah, they know the name, but you don't want to see them getting blown out by Clemson by 40 points on a Saturday. That's not what you're used to as a young player, young recruit. You're used to watching Dalvin Cook, Derwin James, Jameis Winston absolutely tear it up as they are, like Jalen Ramsey out in the league now. They watch those players, and that's something Mike Norvell had to get Florida State's brand as a football program back on the map. And the best way to do that is go and beat your rivals and be able to compete with Clemson. And now I think Florida State's put them at a spot now where we're, starting to talk a lot about the 2023 season, where the expectation is at one of the highest it's been since those latter years of Jimbo Fisher. Now you're expected to be in an ACC championship from here on out. You're expected to hopefully compete in the future of the college football playoff. Now, definitely with that expanding, there's an even bigger expectation. And two, the ACC divisional, the divisional side of things, that's gone. It's just your top two teams will play up there in Charlotte. So, this is something that he's had to work on and do. And I think for Florida State fans to see 10 wins, you beat Oklahoma at the end of the season, you're able to beat LSU, and you beat both your in-state rivals. I think FSU fans should be they should allow for Mike Norvell to get this extension. And I hope I think some fans too think, well, they get the extension, so now things are going to be laid back, and he's just kind of just going to rest, and no longer going to climb, I guess you could say. I think this only secures a lot of things, and most importantly for recruiting moving forward, it shows families, it shows players that the future is under Mike Norvell in Tallahassee, and I think it was a smart move to do this at the appropriate time. And Michael Alford, I won't go against a lot of things Michael Alford does. I'll be honest with you guys. So I think it was a smart move to do this.
Well, that definitely makes two of us. I'm not going to go against Alford either. I think the moves that he's making are top notch of any athletic director across the country. And something that Logan was saying that, the things that can't be talked about, those obstacles that are added to the obstacles that everybody obviously does know. It's amazing to me on a 3 short year span of how much Norvell and his staff has turned around, and Michael Alford being a huge part of that as well. But going from what we were, 4 and 5 years ago to winning 10 ball games in the 2022 season, it doesn't show that you just have better athletes on the field. It doesn't show that just coaches are doing a better job on the field coaching wise, or maybe that we're training better as far as practice goes. Like what Logan was talking about as far as the culture goes. The culture was the biggest issue in my opinion. I think most people's opinion would be the culture was completely sideways from what any Florida State fan had ever been used to. So to see what Coach Norvell and the staff has been able to do culture-wise is amazing. And I think what speaks the loudest to that, not the 10 wins that we just got, but the amount of guys that are returning that could have went on to the NFL or that could have transferred to a team that might be, it could have been a potential better fit for them, but instead they stayed, not only last year, but according to an analyst from ESPN, which I've been doing as many of these percentage things as I can on returning production for Florida State, we're considered the team that has the most returning product out there. So to get these guys that could potentially have went on to the NFL or maybe the USFL or the XFL or etc. But Mike Norvell put on his recruiting cap in a different way, but to get guys to want to stay and basically run the season back of 2022. And let's just, hopefully clean up a couple of more plays or a couple of things that may have happened and even come out with a better season in 2023. And the recruiting obviously has gotten to be much better. I think the 24 class, I've said this multiple times, so this isn't Mark or Logan that's stating this, but I think that the 24 class will be the best class that Norvell has ever recruited as a head coach, regardless if that's at Florida State or at Memphis. I think that this is going to be the best class that he's recruited as a head coach in his entire tenure. So with me saying that, I think Florida State, if they continue to have the mentality that they have, which is Coach Norvell's mentality, Michael Alford's mentality, and even up to the president, I think that everyone's on the same page, not just in the same book anymore, so to speak. I think there was times where Florida State at least we were all reading the same book, but everybody was on complete different chapters. Now it seems like the Florida State is starting to just put everything together and really start clicking on all cylinders, regardless if that's on the field or off the field, because just the way the guys are performing in the classroom on top of everything else, that's a mentality. It's not just, okay, these guys are all doing better just because. No, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of mental strengthening for that to start taking place. And I'm going to give huge credit to Coach Storms and his staff for Tour of Duty, because I believe that mental aspect of what they do in Tour of Duty sets up the entire mental base and mentality for the entire season and seasons to come.